The winter of 2024 was the coldest on record in Maine. My cabin was miles from the nearest town, surrounded by nothing but pine trees and 5 feet of snow. One morning, I looked out my window and saw a snowman in the middle of the clearing. It was crude, tall, and facing my front door. I laughed it off, thinking a local kid must have wandered onto my property. But when I woke up the next morning, there were 2 of them, and they were closer to the porch. There were no footprints in the fresh snow. Not a single track led to or from those frozen figures. By the 3rd night, a circle of 6 snowmen surrounded my cabin. I grabbed my shovel and ran out, screaming, ready to tear them down. I swung at the closest one, and the snow fell away to reveal something that made my stomach turn. Inside, the snow wasn't wood or coal. It was a frozen human hand. The skin turned a deep, bruised purple. I looked at the other 5 snowmen. Their coal eyes didn't look like stones anymore. They looked like human pupils, frozen in a final state of terror. That's when I heard the crunching sound of footsteps on the snow coming from right behind me. But I live alone, and the nearest neighbor died 3 weeks ago. In Minnesota, ice fishing is a religion. But after what happened on Lake Superior, I'll never step on frozen water again. I was out late, and the sun had already dipped below the horizon, and the only light came from my small propane heater. I had dropped my line through a 10-inch hole in the ice. Suddenly, the line jerked. Hard. It felt like I'd hooked a truck. I fought with the reel for 10 minutes until finally, something pale drifted past the hole under the ice. I leaned in, thinking it was a large fish. It wasn't. It was a face, a man's face, pressed directly against the bottom of the ice, staring up at me with wide, milky eyes. He looked like he had been there for years, preserved by the sub-zero water. But then, the dead man's hand moved. He tapped on the ice from underneath. Tink, tink, tink. I wasn't trying to get out here. He was pointing behind me. I turned around just in time to see the ice in the center of my tent start to crack, and a long, wet, skeletal arm reached out of the freezing water, grabbing my ankle with a grip like a steel vise. A blizzard in upstate New York is no joke. When the power went out at 11 p.m., I wasn't worried. I had candles, blankets, and a fireplace. The house was silent, except for the wind howling like a wounded animal outside. Then I heard a different sound, a soft, rhythmic scratching on the basement door. Scratch, scratch, scratch. I assumed it was a stray dog looking for warmth. I opened the door slightly, but the basement was pitch black and smelled like wet fur and old copper. I lit a match, and for a split second I saw it. A creature, 10 feet tall, its body so thin, it looked like a skeleton covered in matted gray hair. It was crouched in the corner, eating something. Or someone. It turned its head, and its neck made a sound like dry branches snapping. It had no mouth, just a slit in its throat that emitted a high-pitched whistle. I slammed the door and locked it, but I could hear it whispering my name through the wood. Not in its own voice, but in the voice of my wife, who was supposed to be asleep upstairs. I ran to the bedroom, but the bed was empty. The window was wide open, and the only thing left was a trail of bloody footprints leading straight back to the basement.